I'd like to say a few words for Professor Norimune. Norimune Kawai holds the position of Deputy Executive Director in Campus Globalization at Hiroshima University and serves as the Director of the Center for Special Needs Education, Research and Practice, the Institute for Diversity and Inclusion at Hiroshima University, Japan. His expertise lies in the fields of special needs education, inclusive education and speech-language pathology. Norimune's current research interests encompass three main areas: research on inclusive education systems, curriculum development, and teacher training approaches in the Asian and African regions. Second, the development of teaching methods and strategies in reading and writing for diverse learners. And third, the study of listeners' auditory perceptions of stuttering and the speech-motor activities of individuals who stutter. In addition to his administrative, research and teaching responsibilities, Nori dedicates more than 200 hours each year to working with children and adults who experience a range of speech, language and hearing disorders. Today, sir is going to deliver his keynote speech on the topic, exploring the triumphs and trials in Japan's journey towards inclusive education in school settings. I request Professor Norimune Kawai to please begin with his speech.
Opportunity to talk about inclusive education in Japan. I really appreciate I'm sure there are lots of preparations especially Dr. Santoshi Halder and her organization teams and patrol members. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about what's happening in terms of inclusive education in Japan a little bit as a keynote speech. And hopefully it's going to be a sort of a hint for you guys to promote inclusive education in the future. In Japan, we had a big, huge shift from special education to special needs education, which was the revision of the educational law in 2006. Then we started special needs education in 2007. So what's the difference between special education and special needs education, which is basically we now have to create the individualized education plan for each student, not only students who have disabilities, but also who have been struggling with learning or behaviors. And also we expanded the definition of disabilities. Now we include students with ADHD, learning disabilities, and high functional autism to receive the appropriate education from public education system. And some of them just go to regular classrooms, and others might receive additional supports in resource rooms. This is sort of an overview of what's happening in terms of the special needs education system in Japan. We have been experiencing lots of decrease of the students, especially in compulsory education. It's been over 20 years. We keep losing lots of students. And especially last 12 years, every single year, we have been losing 100,000 students in compulsory education, which means elementary and middle school system. So we keep losing a lot of students. But interestingly, in special needs education, the percentage of students and number of students who receive special needs education have been increasing a lot. So, like a special need, well, we have multiple track system, which means we promote inclusive education in different settings, such as special needs schools, special needs classrooms, resource rooms, and regular classrooms. So in special needs schools, it was 0.6% of the population in compulsory education went to special needs education schools in 2012, but now it's going up to 0.9%. And we have special needs classrooms in elementary or middle schools, and in 2012 it was 1.6%. But now we have 3.7% of the students who go to special needs classrooms. And also we promote inclusive education in regular classrooms, which means, some students only go to regular classrooms. And regular classroom teachers provide accommodations and modifications for students in regular classrooms. And other students also go to resource rooms, even though they are affiliated with regular classrooms. So Well, in 2012, it was 0.7% who received services in resource rooms, but now it's 1.9%. So, it's been increasing a lot. So in total, 6.5% of the students in compulsory education in Japan receive special needs education. Well, it's sort of confusing because I sometimes use special needs education and versus inclusive education because, we use those terminologies interchangeably. So it's one of the problems we have been experiencing in Japan. So most of the time we focus on students with disabilities when we talk about inclusive education. So which is something, we are supposed to improve, in the future. Also, in the bottom, I put 8.8%. So this is sort of a new data the Ministry of Education, show us, which means the percentage of the students who struggle with their behaviors or learnings in regular classrooms. So every 10 years, Ministry of Education run this survey research, and 10 years ago it was 6.5% of students in regular classrooms who were struggling with learning or behaviors. So it's kind of funny because we keep losing the number of students in compulsory education. However, we keep increasing the percentage of the students who receive special needs education or inclusive education. There could be lots of reasons why it's happening, and this is one of the criticized we receive from the United Nations. Why we've started inclusive education, but still the number and percentage of students have been increasing. Well, probably because we just expanded the definition of special needs or disabilities. So we didn't include high functional autism students, learning disabilities, and ADHD prior to 2006. However, since we've included that population into special needs education, dramatically the population who receives special needs education have been increased. And also the awareness of teachers, because we've started special needs education in 2007, and it's been more than 14 years, right? 14 years, 15 years, whatever. So, but anyway, so we have been doing lots of trainings for teachers, to be able to aware of students' needs, special needs, and how they're gonna, provide services for students, struggling with their achievement or behaviors. So awareness levels of teachers, even in regular classroom teachers, have been increased a lot. So that makes, the increase the percentage of the students in, the special needs education. So here are some strengths of special needs education and inclusive education system in Japan. We have only 33 students who are out of school because of disabilities. So we accept almost all of the students, even though their disabilities are really severe. We tend to include them into our public education system. But still, it doesn't hit 100%. Some students are really severe illness, and it's going to be really tough for them to go to schools anyway. And in that case, special needs education school teachers also visit their homes to provide appropriate education for their needs. But there are limits of the number of teachers, so we can't really provide everybody. But we have been doing really well, but it doesn't hit 100% yet. So and we really have to consider how we decrease the deferment or exemption of students, who cannot go to school because of their disabilities. However, at the same time, because of accepting lots of students with severe disabilities, many teachers, especially in regular classroom teachers, who happen to have students with severe disabilities in their classrooms, struggling with how they can deal with students with severe disabilities. So, which is part of the reasons why we still have special needs schools. So, special needs schools, we provide, independent or small group education up to eight in high school sections, and up to 6 students in middle and elementary school sections. So we provide really, small environment, students' environment, and individualized education in special needs education schools. But in regular classrooms, we tend to have 35 to 40 students per classrooms. And 8.8%, so 2 to 3 students with disabilities are there. And our teachers are not well trained in terms of special needs education, so some teachers just simply struggle. They don't know how to deal with students with disabilities. So that kind of things are happening right now. And so, as I told you, we have been providing the multi-track system, so, including special needs schools, special needs classrooms, and regular classrooms, and the resource room system. But the students, basically, our educational law says, basically students, even though they have severe disabilities, they have rights to go to neighborhood schools. However, if they have severe disabilities, they have the options to go to special needs education schools. And parents, I believe, the partial reasons why the number of populations who go to special needs education schools and classrooms, I think that change of the perceptions, parents' perceptions towards special needs education. So I'm not sure what's happening in India, but let's say 20 to 30 years ago, many parents felt like it's sort of a shame to bring their kids to special needs schools or special needs classrooms. So they wanted to push their kids into regular classrooms. But nowadays, because of the quality of education in special needs education and special needs classrooms have been improved, and also parents' perceptions towards special needs education have been changed dramatically from negative to positive. So, many parents would like to bring their kids to special needs schools or special needs classrooms rather than just, regular classrooms, which doesn't necessarily provide appropriate, accommodations and modifications. So, while the goal of inclusion, we all know it is really important to, change from multi-track system to one-track system. But still, we have been sort of struggling, how we're gonna demolish, special needs schools, because they have been providing good quality education with smaller, number of students, and they have, individualized education, which can fit with students' needs. But we really have to graduate from that kind of system, and we seriously consider how we're gonna, provide education into unitrack or one-track system. And now it started like 2 to 3 years ago. Pre-service system has been improved in Japan. So teachers who would like to be math teachers, elementary school teachers, or health, PE teachers, health service teachers, any kinds of teachers, they have been requested to take at least 1 credit course of special needs education. I know it's only 1 credit, so it's not enough, but it's better than 0. So, new graduates from universities and graduate schools, they at least have the basic knowledge of inclusive education and special needs education. So that, even though they are hired as teachers, even regular classroom teachers, they at least know how they're going to provide, special needs education to students who have been struggling with their achievement or behaviors. But it's just a basic. So they still need in-service training, of course. So we ratified CRPD, Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. In order to ratify the convention, we had a 10 years plan. So this is a list of the first 5-year plan, how we changed our laws and regulations. I'm not going to go over everything because of the time constraint, but yeah, you can sort of get the idea of how we're going to change our laws. So we changed the basic law for persons with disabilities. So we confirmed, people with disabilities also have exactly the same rights as who don't have disabilities. And also we changed educational law, and we also changed the law for the employment for people with disabilities. Then after that, we signed the CRPD in 2007. Okay. Then the second 5-year plan, which is going to be the second part of the 10 years plan. So in order to ratify CRPD, we also, after signing the contract of the CRPD, we kept changing our laws. So the basic law for persons with disabilities, we just revised, and we also had a, prohibition law for discrimination of people with disabilities. Then it was 10 years ago, we ratified CRPD. But after ratifying CRPD, of course, it is really important for us keep changing our system because now we really have to consider in terms of the social inclusion, not only including people with disabilities, but also recently Japan. There are lots of foreign people coming over to Japan to study, work, or whatever reasons. And now we've started Japanese education system for foreign students who like to go to the public education system in Japan. So, and also, we've started special needs education only in compulsory education, except special needs schools. So which means if students with disabilities would like to go to regular classrooms with disabilities, and it's going to be okay for students who don't have disabilities like intellectual disabilities or cognition aspects of difficulties. Some of them still learn a lot in regular classrooms, but the students with intellectual disabilities, once they graduate from middle school system, most of the time they only have the choice to go to special needs education schools because most of the high schools, almost all of the high schools, don't have special needs classrooms. Even though our education school law says, high school systems could have special needs classrooms. So they have no choice but going to special needs schools. So I put some of the recommendations by United Nations Committee dealing with the CRPD. So it was 2 years ago. They had the survey and also the analysis based on what we have been doing after ratification of CRPD, and they brought some concerns about our growth in terms of ratifying the CRPD. So as I told you, one concern they brought was growing number of children with disabilities. So, for the purpose of inclusive education, it is important to, welcome students with disabilities in regular classrooms and regular settings, but still, we depend on the different systems to provide education for students with disabilities. And also, they urged the Japanese government to adopt a national action plan for quality inclusive education. So yeah, placement, we tend to talk about placement, but at the same time, we really have to consider the quality of education, how we can provide appropriate education for each student to meet with their needs. And while we still have struggling, and we have lots of struggles with the training system, pre and in-service training for teachers. Well, it's okay. It's been okay for special needs school teachers education, but regular classroom teachers education. As I told you, there's only one credit course in special needs education, but that will be it. So that wouldn't be enough for pre-service teachers to have the confidence to deal with students with disabilities. Also, they urged the Japanese government to end institutionalization by redirecting financial resources away from residential facilities and towards helping people with disabilities lead independent lives in the community. So, which gonna be, especially for people or students with mental illness. There are lots of mental illness institutions, and they tend to keep their clients into the institute and for a long time. But our government has been trying to free those populations into communities. But the acceptance of the community, it's still lots of problems. So the perceptions towards people with mental illness, we really have to change to be, for them to be accepted appropriately in community. So how to find a middle ground between special needs and regular education? So this is RTI, responsiveness to intervention. United States, and other European countries apply this model. So our country, Japan, still we have two two systems: special education, special needs education, and regular education. We can see the clear boundaries between them. But here, RTI, they have 3 tiers. So the second one, this says, targeted small group interventions for at-risk students. So they are not officially labeled as disabilities, but still teachers, create a small group environment and provide appropriate education for their needs. That would be sort of a prevention for students having severe disabilities or difficulties in learning or achievement. So I think Japan needs to move toward employing this system. So middle, in between special needs and regular education. I know there are lots of students who are in regular classrooms but are still struggling with education. Also, this is what we've started, one of them is flexible schools. So this means, this is all, many high schools, started applying this system. So this offer multiple curricula, such as full-time, regular correspondence, and credit systems, allowing students to choose classes and acquire credits according to their interests and lifestyles. So they provide students, one curriculum, which is just a regular curriculum. And also they could, provide other curriculum. So such as, they'd like to work in the morning, then after that, they'd like to go to school. Afternoon classes or evening classes, they provide those kind of opportunities. And also, usually high schools, they provide 3-year education. But for some students, the schools, flexible schools, they provide 4 years or 5 years education. Because some of the students are, slow learners, they need more time to complete everything. Also, flexible schools allow students to choose classes based on their interests. So some students are really keen on, maybe technologies, or maybe AIs, or internet, or those kind of systems. Some students are really good at those, but doesn't necessarily mean they're really good at social studies or language, right? So but they could focus on based on their interests. So that is a kind of the concept of flexible schools. And also, they tend to give a second chance or a third chance for students who already dropped out from high school system. So they're going to provide, additional exams for those students who already dropped out from high school system, and they're going to provide, additional education to be able to fit with the high school education system. Also, alternative education. Well, we haven't started this system, but the UK and US, they offer alternative education system. So especially in secondary education or high school education system. So which prevent from students dropping out rate, and also just like a flexible system in Japan, they offer like the specific education system which is going to be based on students' interests. And also home-based education format. We don't have this officially, but our government is considering to set up this kind of education system. But they sort of stopped discussing on this system after COVID-19 because even though we don't have home-based educational format, there are lots of students. The number of students who choose not to go to schools has been increasing a lot during and after COVID-19. So, now the government considers, it's going to be a problem if, parents don't bring their kids to schools. So they are sort of considering how they're going to increase the number of students who go to schools instead of staying at home. But, inclusive education, considering the true inclusive education, we have to consider the quality of education, not the format or placement. So if they get the quality education at home, we really have to consider, it will be one of the choices we can provide for students for appropriate education for them. So future directions, I don't know the future because, it's changing a lot and we can't really foresee the future, but, as I told you, placement, it's not that important for diverse learning, but organizing appropriate curricula to meet children's diverse educational needs is more critical. And professional development, we have been struggling with the professional development because, some teachers, especially in regular classrooms, some of them don't really understand the importance of inclusive education. Well, inclusive education is not only for students with disabilities, but also for, regular students or, students in gifted, education students. So everybody has to be in, inclusive education system. But, some teachers, why do you have to deal with students with disabilities? 80.8% in regular classrooms, it's not special anymore. So, even see students you're going to work with students with disabilities anyway. So, but some teachers, don't want to deal with those populations, unfortunately. So professional development, we have been providing lots of opportunities, but I don't know how seriously some of the teachers who are opposing to work with students, like to take the training opportunities seriously. And also community involvement, it's really important, especially as I told you, we have special needs schools. And the number of special needs schools are pretty limited in each prefecture or states. So, most of the students commute to schools by bus. So they don't necessarily live in neighborhood areas. However, it is really important for special needs education schools to have the firm contact with their own communities. And most of the special needs schools in Japan have been trying to have the good connection with community people. So there are lots of good practices in Japan who have been working with the community and to improve the education in special needs education schools. So hopefully you can have the opportunity to read some articles or even visit Japan and observe how they're gonna create the good connections with community. And also technology, India is a huge technology country, and technology integration, is really critical. Especially my specialty is speech language pathology, and I have been dealing with lots of students who have been, difficulties in communication. And even some of the students even cannot talk. So we provide, the devices for them, then by pressing the button, they can talk, instead of, they don't talk, but by pressing the button, the computers, will talk for him or her. So that will be really helpful to increase the relationships with the students in regular classrooms. So, this is sort of the final, slide for me. So you can see, locomotive, which is sort of a long time ago, transportation system, right? But as you can see, like left top picture, which was right after World War II in Japan. So there are lots of people, actually physically riding on the locomotive, going to another city. We may see those kind of scenery in, some countries. But nowadays, we have bullet train, it's sort of left, bottom. So those pictures show, well, in locomotive, it was okay for people to ride. But what's going to happen if they try to ride outside of the, bullet train? They're going to be dropped. They could be died, So our society, it's been speeding up a lot. So which means, some people cannot really fit with this speed. Even though they don't officially have disabilities, they might feel, I'm really, tired. I can't really catch up with this speed. Or, internet, or IT. I know it's important, but I can't really catch up with those technologies. So we also have to consider, those populations. How are we going to include those populations? So it's not only the disability stuff, but also diversity, and also even we could be one of the people who could be behind the society because of illness or whatever reasons. So we really have to consider how we're gonna create a compulsory society. We could include many different populations into one system. So, you can see another locomotive on your right hand, which is sort of a sightseeing train, which is really popular in Japan, in Yamaguchi, which is next, prefecture from Hiroshima. So if you have a chance to visit Japan, please make sure to ride this, locomotive. It's really popular, so you really have to make a reservation. But this is another way of showing, locomotive is really inconvenient for the daily, living, but still they could be, popular in a sightseeing situation. We really have to consider, each people's needs and how and where they're gonna, work better, or they're gonna be really shining in a certain place or something. Okay, so that's a really important idea of considering, how we're gonna promote inclusive education. Okay, thank you very much.